Hello. I had a long chat yesterday with somebody from Russia with a YouTube channel and mission similar to mine, and I got updated firsthand about the actual situation with free speech suppression in Russia and the Russian internet, based not only on his personal experience, but he is also personal friends with the owners of the major channels of my type in Russia, and I'm gonna tell you what are they going through. Also, some of what they said confirmed what I was suspecting since a couple of years, that the Iron Curtain is coming back. How this affects you personally at this point is, in practical terms, is that emails that you sent sometime to Russia or may not be delivered, or emails which they sent to you, you will simply not receive, and nobody gets an error message notification that his email has been actually deleted. And then in the end, I'm gonna cover the subject of what is the significance of the Britexit. The United Kingdom left the infamous EU joke, and what that means in a planetary scale in terms of making some opposition to the evil which is openly controlling every facet of our society. So why actually Kaltepin decided to talk to me was that me and him, we can exchange emails and we receive those, but he noticed that when he corresponds with, because he also publishes in English, not only in Russian, with people interested from abroad, kind of half of the correspondence gets lost. Actually, since a couple of years, he started noticing that at that time he thought that people all of a sudden became not so serious and irresponsible and are very interested, and then all of a sudden they leave the correspondence when they have agreed on something, and it was just every time he gets some serious contact from abroad. So over the years he was always thinking, well, people have changed all of a sudden, but recently he got actually a couple of signals indicating that people were actually not receiving his emails. Some of these people with whom he was, for example, arranging expeditions, they were about to come, and then all of them just no longer contact him. And then somebody on Facebook actually sent him a message that, we were planning this expedition, and then all of a sudden you stopped contacting me and I couldn't come. And then he checked with a few other people, and that was always the case. People simply never received his email, which he sent and is still in his sent folder, and there is no message that your email is not delivered. All the email accounts are completely functional. So he was asking me if I happen to know anything about that, and yes, I happen to know, because years ago, during the first Italy expedition, he was also in the expedition, and at that time he promised all the participants, because he was taking photos all the time, that after the expedition he will share those photos so that the people have photos of themselves. Yeah. He made a special folder with all the personal photos taken during the expedition, put them in, I believe, some sort of Yandex server, and send the link to me, because I was doing the correspondence for the entire expedition, so that I can distribute it to all the people who took part. Some, I believe, 12 people. And but that group was very friendly. We had lots of bond, and I was doing lots of emailing with them before and after the expedition. And I sent all of them the link to this server where they can download their personal photos, and I thought everybody received it, because I never got any error message from all the emails I sent. And what happened is, after that I was sending them other emails, and we were really talking a lot, and once I mentioned the photos which I sent you from Kaltepin, and then somebody told me, no, I never received anything. I received all your emails, and I checked again, but there was nothing like this. And then I actually got a bit suspicious. What is going on? I was thinking there's something wrong with my email provider or something like that. And I asked some of the other 12 people if they have received. And everybody told me the same. I get all your messages, I reply, but we never received that email. So there is filtering. Just because one of my emails contained link to, let's say, a folder on Russian server, that particular email got blocked. And I remember that at that time, I very rarely have looked at the news, but I had, and around those days, exactly, I remember, and there was on BBC, they openly admitted that now they have started filtering because of this evil Russia that is, what was it, making their voting fraudulent and is so inimical to them and all this absolutely ungrounded lies. Now they have implemented strict internet control over what is getting transmitted from Russia to them. They didn't say they are removing emails in such a sly way, hiding them, but I mean, this really falls in this type of category, especially when they openly admit it and announce it. So, if you're not yet aware, the Iron Curtain is coming back. Yes, yes, yes. So, let's see the history of the Iron Curtain. It was initially a concept which was created by the devil after the Second World War to divide and conquer. Initially, it was purely ideological, convincing the people of the East that the people of the West are against them and vice versa. Eventually, when this idea got cemented as the story which everybody should accept if he doesn't believe, even, this Iron Curtain took a completely material form of a 7,000-kilometer fence, boundary, to be more precise, which consisted of fences, all kinds of walls, extensive minefields, watchtowers, and of course heavily guarded areas. On a subtle plan, on the eastern side, people were restricted from Western broadcastings. Yeah, if you listen to a radio station broadcasted from the West, even at that time, they had a technology that could detect that you are receiving that and listening to that radio station, and you could get into trouble. That's why people would go and listen to that radio in their cars and then run away so that only the location of the car would be known, and they can't trace your flat, for example. That's what we were doing during communist time. On the western side, they didn't have that type of control, but they managed to actually convince the people on the western side of the curtain um, that on the eastern side the people are inimical, and also that their living conditions are much worse than they actually were. I'm telling you this as a first-hand experience because I lived on both sides of the curtain and I have a direct view of what was going on. So over the years, they decided to abandon that type of concept, to substitute it with even worse, of course, and they even brought down the Berlin Wall, one of the main symbols of this Iron Curtain. But in the last couple of years, they are trying to bring the concept back. For example, in the major news outlets, they are putting stories that Russia is trying to tamper with the elections in the West. And the grounds which they list for that are ridiculous. I mean, it's obvious that this is made up. And Now on the shadow banning of YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, etc. in Russia. What is the situation? Absolutely same as it is here in the West. Channels like mine, they're in the absolutely same situation. The owners of the channels can upload videos like me. However, people rarely see them because most of the traffic, the place where people usually select their videos is on the YouTube home page. And those channels which are in shadow ban, their content is not shown there at all. Or also in the list of the recommended videos on the right hand side when you watch a video, over there it is rarely shown, but somewhere not in the top positions. It never comes in autoplay, which is another major source for discovery and watching. So those who are in shadow ban, they are deprived of the two major sources of traffic, the auto view and the home page, and that reduces the views with 90%. 90. So the major Russian channels similar to mine are in the same predicament like me. Most of them have either reduced their video production because they don't have audience anymore, and some of them have even not closed down, but they do not post new videos, and I'm talking about channels which are much bigger than mine. So this very sly and nasty tactic of YouTube not to take the channels down, but make it look like as if the people don't follow them. You see, now these channels are not popular. You know, we have nothing against them. We allow them to publish, but it is the people who do not watch them and do not subscribe. That's how they make it look like. Also, some are experiencing the same on Facebook. I'm not sure if I'm going through that because my Facebook presence is relatively low. But Facebook, they also have the very same algorithm. When they shadow ban somebody, the post exists, but one has to go specifically to the page to see them. They don't appear in the feed of the people, and what most people look is the feed. Also, when he found out about that, for a couple of years he was thinking it's just stagnation and people are no longer interested. But when he found out about the emails, then he got doubtful about Facebook, and when he checked what is visible from not his own computer but from others' computer, he figured out that Facebook is doing the same thing as YouTube shadow banning, and Twitter, they are known to be doing the same thing very well. They have been in the news with this type of cheap tricks for years. They suppress true knowledge, like the type I'm publishing about the ancient history. And also far right-wing parties, but not all of them, only those who are really for stopping all this nonsense. Content of the left-wing parties is promoted, its importance is inflated artificially, and this is ongoing, and this is all the platforms: Twitter, YouTube, Facebook. So if any of you is ever voting or supporting any left wing, you should be extremely careful. Most likely you are voting for the devil. And I understand that their philosophy is humane, that is true, but please look behind the curtains. The laws they make are, crimes against humanity, while the right-wing parties, which suffer suppression since years, only some of them, usually they have a very strictly nationalistic philosophy, which may seem unattractive. I agree with that. However, they are suppressed because at least they're honest, and the laws for which they stand are the best path we can follow if we are for gradual progress towards something more sensible. If you have not read this post, I beg you to read it as a perfect example of the unbelievable, ridiculous, and scary laws which will be popping up and are popping up under the protection of the left-wing parties. Things like this are ruining people's lives. These are obviously immoral laws. I mean, let's say for shoplifting or a very minor theft, one is fined, let's say, I don't know, maximum few €100 for something extremely minor, yeah, if you steal a chewing gum. And yet, if you steal something on internet, because taking copyright materials is essentially a small theft. It can be categorized that way in the worst case scenario. I mean, and you steal something on the internet which has a value of 1 cent or less, and then you can be convicted for actually hundreds of thousands of euro. I was wrong when I was writing this post. Later on, I found a way that they can actually convict you to easily up to 1 million for using a copyrighted image for non-commercial use, even for non-profit or research purpose. And the sufficient ground to be convicted for such cosmic amounts of money is that you have shown your intent to use the image by putting it on your server, even if not a single person has actually seen it. This is unbelievable, and I'm not dreaming. This is a new law, but it's already functional, and daily people are being convicted on the basis of this. And people who publish anything, they don't even know in what kind of danger they are, because if they want to inquire about copyright, they will do a search with the bribed search engines, and those will show them articles which are clear disinformation, telling you that there is such a thing as fair use, and that if you are taken to court, the decision will depend on what kind of use you have made. Is it fair? There is nothing like this in the actual laws, at least in Europe. I mean, the people of Europe, if they become aware of these laws, they will be definitely against them. I mean, this is a ridiculous. This is ridiculous multiplied 100 times. But I have no way to even inform the people of Europe about this, because my own channel is also shadow banned. And not only it is shadow banned, but when I try to post information about what is shadow banning, most people do not concentrate enough to even understand what is shadow banning. And they are even correcting me that I have seen your video on YouTube, it means you are not shadow banned. And just to wind up with all the information I received from Russia, their search engine, the main one, Yandex, is also taken over by evil. They filter absolutely in the same way the good stuff and leave only Penguin and mainstream news on the top. Of course, the Western search engines do that there as well, but they still have one platform. It is called Vkontakte. It is probably the most used local Russian platform. It is big, it is the biggest. They do not filter yet. So there is one chance, at least locally, still for people to publish something in a sensible way over there. And just a little bit more information on the European left-wing parties to show how dear are they to the devil. This I heard actually in the discussions, the public discussions which are broadcasted live on internet of the European Union itself from Brussels. It turned out that all other parties except the left-wing parties in Europe, they have to, of course, pay for their own advertisements. Yeah? They collect memberships, fees from the members, etc. And that's how they promote themselves. However, the left-wing parties have been enjoying free money, millions every year since the creation of the European Union. This is not just one-time event in the game of chess between the parties. This is like inbuilt in the structure of this devilish Union of Europe. The advertisement of the left-wing parties is paid by the European taxpayers. And now, what is the connection of the Britexit to all of this? Now, quite few people in Britain got aware that, hey, this European Union, we are paying so much for our membership, we are getting far less money back. And on top of that, our country is not independent and they force on us stupid laws. And they made a referendum. Probably there should have been an attempt, to do tricks with the vote counting fraud. But even with that, the majority voted so that UK will leave the European Union, and with great difficulty and tremendous fines, financial fines, they managed very recently to escape this union of evil. By the way, years ago, the people of Greece voted for the same thing, but the European Union said, no, this vote is not good because people don't know what they want. They actually want the opposite. They didn't know what they're voting for and declared the vote invalid. They said we have to make another vote. Also, parts of Spain, the people, by majority, by far, they wanted independence from Spain and the European Union, but they just sent armed forces and just beat it up the people, even disabled people in wheelchairs, women, old people. In Spain, they did not even allow any voting or legal procedure to be initiated with the simple tactic of sending police to beat up people who attempt such things. Just a simple fact which will tell you all about the European Union is that in this democratic institution, yes, certain representatives and members of various commissions are indeed people voted and elected by the people of the member countries, but the very top positions, like really the leaders, presidents, etc., they are voted neither by the public nor by the representatives of the public. So most of the English people, they decided to take action, and you see it works. Now it's not that it will make major difference in their lives, but they are shielded, for example, from extreme nonsense laws like this one about the copyright I mentioned earlier, because now the European courts don't have jurisdiction in UK anymore, while in the European countries, court decision from another country is executed from the local police without any further stamps or endorsements needed, just direct. In the same way as we were put into this silly predicament of having to bow down before these devils, step by step our freedom was taken away very gradually, stealthily. In the same way, all the steps needed to become free, they're also gradual, like the people of UK are doing a small step. If people from the other countries now, they have an example, they organize themselves and get together and also leave the EU, that will not only shield their citizens, but also the devils from the EU will start having a slight fear when they make nonsense laws. And eventually, when people figure out more and more that they have to be very politically active and get their rights back, by politically active, I don't mean getting buried deeper and deeper in the left right paradigm, but actively working towards a shift of the paradigm towards real moral justice instead of childish kindergarten game of left and right. As more and more people wake up to that, there will be parties which stand for the real cosmic justice in more and more countries, because currently there are such parties only in a couple of countries, and they're happy if they can get one seat in the parliament. This is the greatest dream they can have currently. But as more people turn their paths away from alcohol and stop listening to the mainstream media, these parties will gain more and more popularity, and in a few decades the new age will be here. Currently, there are two major barriers before the new age. The second is the alcohol consumption, and the first one is that this belief amongst the masses that I don't believe the government, I don't believe the TV, but it's okay to watch as long as I don't believe them. No, the biggest trick is that it is not okay to watch, even if you think you don't believe. As long as you watch the TV, you are in their grip. Besides the direct disinformation from the mass media, the much more dangerous are the subtle suggestions which they convey in a hidden form, convincing you to adopt disadvantageous for yourself beliefs as fundamental, axiomic, and self-evident, although they are actually fake. Just an example, let's say you hear in the news about some sickness spreading amongst the chicken, and they are just providing information what kind of measures exactly are they taking so that the chicken meat and the eggs are not infected. And to the non-discerning person, this may look just yet like another boring news. However, in the background, they're working on your consciousness actively. How exactly? For example, they show this spirit of concern, and then they show you how they apply chemicals with people in some sort of suits against poisons, spraying. And this conveys this subtle suggestion that this is the only way to deal with such sicknesses, with such problems. It also glorifies the state, because of which all this can be organized. If you were on your own, how would you know about all these treatments? How could you provide them so fast? And you see, when you comply with the state and you listen to it and you pay your taxes for war, all this will be automatically arranged for you, and all you need is to sit in your sofa. All this is subtly suggested to you, but what they are not telling you is that the chicken started getting sick because they were poisoned with all kinds of other chemicals to start with. Also, they are not telling you that if the chicken live in free normal conditions as God intended, they would never get this disease anyway. And also, they are not telling you that the chemicals that they spray with will actually give you that headache that your doctor is telling you is actually due to old age or just some other innocent factor. The person watching the TV news about the chicken being sprayed has also had a couple of beers, and in this condition he doesn't even care about what or whom is doing anything to his consciousness, as long as he can forget it just for a short while, because he's had an exhausting day at work. All he feels is, don't I have the right of a bit of a break from all this exhausting life? And that's why he goes for the beer, not being aware that it is a vicious circle, because for the price paid for this small relief of a short period of time will be long-term misery. If I had a TV myself, I would use it only to watch animal documentaries or nature documentaries. And if I would hear them talking about some sort of philosophies instead of just, for example, observations about the life of the animals, I would just put it in mute. But I don't have a TV. Instead of that, today I'm gonna start preparing for the Mahashivaratri. This year it is on 21st of February. It is an auspicious days, and mantras chanted at that time or austerities performed give more fruit, more result than if they are performed on some other day. And since Shiva has been my lord in my other incarnations, I think it is a good idea to continue this tradition in this life as well. Om Namah Shivaya.